It's always weird to tell ghost stories. I don't know where it is I lie on the spectrum of skepticism. I know there are certain things in this world that we can't fully understand, and there are certain situations that can't be fully explained. When it comes to the paranormal, I always try my best, and I mean my absolute best, to logically assess a situation and rationally explain what may or may not have happened during said situation. Sometimes, however, there is no debunking a situation. You just have to chalk it up to being paranormal, right? And you just try your best to move on and continue on with life. On today's video, in the spirit of October and Halloween, I thought it'd be cool to share with you my personal experiences with the paranormal. This particular story, I had never told anyone, and for some reason wasn't sure if I was ever going to, but here we are. Before I go on, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to my little channel. I appreciate the love, and if you don't, well, you'll be haunted by Bloody Mary or some shit. Just kidding. Without further ado, here's one of my personal creepy experiences with the paranormal. It was the dead of winter, and my parents were planning a business trip to Canada for the weekend. It was just a weekend trip, and being that we live in New York, the road trip wouldn't be too arduous. I can't remember the reason why I didn't go, but I just remember staying at my aunt's apartment just a couple blocks down the street. I had packed my things and was ready for a weekend of hanging out with my cousins and doing absolutely nothing but watching movies and lounging around. And that's exactly what I did. Friday to Sunday during the day was a great time. I couldn't really complain. My parents actually wound up calling to let me and my aunt know that they were staying one more night in Toronto because the snow was getting bad and they didn't want to risk driving back in a whiteout. So, no big deal. I didn't mind staying one more night. After we had dinner, my cousin and my aunt went to bed early, seeing as they had work in the morning. But since I was off from school for winter break, I could stay up. So I did. I watched the snow fall from the window and curled up watching YouTube videos till my eyelids felt too heavy to sustain open. It was around 2:30 a.m. I walked quietly to the bathroom in the dark since I didn't want to wake my aunt or my cousin, who was a very light sleeper, by the way. This detail is important. I had no reason to be afraid because the apartment never gave me reason to feel uncomfortable or anxious. The staircase, however, located just outside the apartment door, always gave me the creeps. It led to the second floor apartment, which was inhabited by the landlords at the time, who were an elderly couple. When I got to the bathroom, I took off my glasses, washed my face, and brushed my teeth. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm basically legally blind, so I can't really function without my glasses. This was before I wore contacts. As I was drying my face, I saw what I thought was the bathroom door opening from the reflection of the large shower door mirror next to me. So, I instinctively jumped to hold the door closed. Even though I wasn't naked, it was just second nature to me. But when I went to push the door back, I realized that it had never opened. I immediately put on my glasses to make sure the door was closed, and it was. So I opened it to see if my aunt or my cousin were standing outside. Maybe they had quietly opened the door, then shut it gently after realizing I was in there. The door, however, was locked, so they couldn't have possibly opened it. Also, when I opened the door, there was no one there. As I left the bathroom, I made sure the door to the apartment was locked, and I quietly walked to my makeshift bed in my aunt's bedroom, where I had been staying in a separate bed from my aunt, but nevertheless in the same room. As I gently climbed into bed, making sure not to wake anybody, I was startled when I heard a scream. It was my aunt. She was an elderly woman, and at the time she was in her 80s, and occasionally suffered from night terrors. She had not had one all weekend, but that night, she did. Her scream was loud enough to wake up my cousin, who then called out to my aunt to try to compose her. It seemed to have worked because she was sound asleep after that brief episode. At this point, it was around 3 a.m., and I laid in bed with my eyes closed, listening to the gentle sound of snow as I slowly drifted away into my slumber. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. It came from upstairs, but from where I had heard it, It sounded like it came specifically from the top of the staircase that was located just outside the apartment door. I got up and called out to my aunt and my cousin to see if they too heard what I heard. To my surprise, they were fast asleep. I called to my cousin, the light sleeper, who was in the other room, but she did not answer. Strange. She was the lightest sleeper I knew, so for her to not have woken up from that bang or the sound of me calling her had me frightened a bit. She was breathing though. I knew this because I heard her snoring. I figured, well, she may just not have heard it, or it may have been my imagination, since I heard it just as I was about to fall asleep. I hid under the covers and made sure not to fall asleep just in case I heard something else again. At this point, I felt an immense uneasiness, like a sort of looming negativity, similar to what my body feels before a panic attack. All of a sudden, there was a heavy rush down the same set of stairs, like whoever or whatever was up there had dashed down with considerable weight and an immense speed. I immediately thought that one of the landlords had taken a spill down the stairs. They were an elderly couple, so the possibility of them losing their step in the dark and falling down the stairs was quite imaginable. But something wasn't right. What I had heard didn't sound like a fall. It sounded like quick, heavy footsteps. Then, another bang. But this time, on the front door to the apartment. It was loud. I jumped in my bed and held my breath to see if it would happen again. I heard the sounds of whispers and was overcome by sensory overload. I tried my best to focus on the silence, but the silence itself was so loud, I began to uncontrollably shake. I had the urge to get up and make sure everything was okay, but I was stuck there, frozen. I remember what my aunt had told me years ago when she had an encounter with a malignant energy. She had said that she herself was not afraid, but that her alma, or her spirit, was paralyzed with fright. It was at that moment in time that I heard something that will forever be ingrained in my memory, till the day I die. I know for a fact that I was not having an episode of sleep paralysis, nor was I dreaming, because I was conscious enough to have placed the sheets over myself, covering every last inch of my body. What I heard, just outside the apartment door, by the bottom of the staircase, was a laugh. It wasn't like they make it sound in the horror movies. It was unembellished. There was no echo. There was no reverb. Just a simple, dry laugh. But in its dry simplicity was eeriness. The whispers became louder and my mind was racing a million miles per hour. But there was nothing I could do because I was paralyzed with fright. I laid there in bed with my eyes wired shut, making sure that my extremities were all inside the blanket. I was so afraid. I was so afraid because I knew this wasn't a panic attack. I've had my fair share of panic attacks in the past, and this wasn't quite the same sensation. During one of my standard panic attacks, I tend to lose my grip or my grounding in reality. What I was experiencing that night, I was fully present and aware of. Eventually, the whispers stopped. My nerves simmered down and I was able to fall asleep, still underneath the covers, of course. I sought solace in the loud snores of both my cousin and my aunt. Never again would I hear a loud bang that night, nor would I hear that devious laugh. I woke up the next morning and asked my cousin and my aunt if they had heard anything last night. My cousin did not even remember calming down my aunt from her night terror, but I know she did. I never asked the landlords about that night either. They both have since passed away, so I'll never get the chance to now, but who knows? Maybe the old man got up really early that day or night to shovel the snow or salt his property. Maybe the loud sound was a bag of salt falling down the flight of stairs. Maybe the loud bang was his shovel accidentally hitting the apartment door. Whatever the case may be, I'll never know. And no matter what, nothing can or will explain the whispers and the laughter. I never told anyone that story. It happened during a particularly dark point in my life, so I guess I just tucked it away and decided to forget about it. And I almost did.